Right after the crisis, catastrophe, and I'll try and kind of make it clear where I'm going. I'm just starting right after Bricker at the top, answered the cancer, the crisis, and then he answered the cancer argument.
Okay. And so you're going to add more to the crisis?
No, I'm just going to start right after that. The first argument I have to make is two people produce new people, a third person, and that's incestuous. And
This is becoming a disaster.
Tell me what the argument is.
Sure.
Is it blocked anyway?
Don't worry, I'll go straight down the block. Solve the problem.
It's not going to solve the problem because now I have it on
Well,
multiple
that
pieces
sounds
of
like
paper.
plot killing.
Because now I don't have room
Sounds
for
like
this
a little something
incest.
you did. It's nothing to do with our argument style or anything. I assure you.
This is just the reason I shouldn't have flown in at all.
you're right.
You're right.
But then I just fall asleep.
They say that two people would produce an incestuous relationships, but they would have an incestuous relationship with the K. There's no differentiation between teams that do not defend the topic and like making fun of debate versus teams that think you should defend the topic. They would produce one of the same. Additionally, they have conceded a 1 and C argument that they are not the same. Oklahoma, UMKC, Dartmouth, and Georgia have all read a version of the Casey affirmative this year. They have all been pro-choice Casey after they're all entirely different. You cannot read the same 1 and C strategy against all of them, yet they're both predictable because we all have cards on Casey, which proves that we do not reproduce incestuous relationships are one of the same, and we don't have this incestuous relationship, but we allow diverse arguments in debate as long as they have somewhat predictability. The threshold here is that they have conceded that they allow the AF to make the choice, which would be worse off for the negative because they allow the AF to arbitrarily choose which one they can defend. They say that debate's in a crisis, but debate's not in a crisis. Bricker kind of touched on this, but there's no evidence indicates the debate's unlikely to collapse. The most likely scenario is that the Kansas Debate Union has been around for 110 years, yet we are still resilient, and we still have different types of arguments and different meaning. We don't try and speak for incestuous relationships at all, but we try and have diverse argumentative strategies. They say that there are 165 cases and not one can defend the resolution, but this was explained above that most base of them off the decision, which means that we can still have 4 basic tenets or strategies we know what to prepare for before the debate round, which provides the negative with some form of predictability. They've also conceded the death ritual 2006 evidence in the 1 and C shell that indicates that they are allowing them to arbitrarily choose the rules because they abide by things like time limits, and they went affirmative in the out round when they were told to go affirmative, but at the same time they didn't follow the tournament invitation here because they allows them to pick and choose the rules. They say that they can have they try and answer all alternative when they say alternative ways of thinking would do no good and it's only a debate space, but clearly using a debate round doesn't lead to changes. This is empirically denied by the last 10 years of teams thinking they were revolutionary in breaking with the space. They've also conceded that e-debate can reach a larger audience and they can try and change the topic to be more inclusive. This also improves the futility of their project because this is one of the most inclusive topics within the last decade, yet they still cannot find a space to defend the resolution here, even when you can talk about issues that may be more important or maybe more liberal in a sense. They say that our Shively evidence is arbitrary and that a case list would check, but our Shively evidence indicates that rules are a prerequisite to debate because if we do not know what they are saying, then we cannot possibly debate them. They say that the case list checks, but the case list doesn't check, especially in a world of their alternative, not just Baylor, where they would set a precedent where 165 teams could do whatever the fuck they wanted to do every single round, which proves that the case list would no longer have any relevance when we could have a new affirmative every debate because there's no link to this topic. They say the Jenlison evidence says that it only says change by political science. Our Jenlison evidence is pretty good. It indicates that we need to have a political science focus. It's grounded in a focus on policy relevance. The policy relevance is critical to tackling real-world challenges. Our evidence indicates that there is not enough policy relevance in the world today, and that's why we're having trouble dealing with real-world problems that will confront us. That proves that we have a propensity to lead to good policies. They've also conceded a piece of 1 and C Albert evidence that says pointing out the world is bad will do little to nothing to effectuate change. This is a solvency takeout to the affirmative. This evidence indicates that only formulating specific policies would have a chance of altering the status quo. This not only proves the futility of them trying to change debate as a practice, but it proves that we should be able to focus on political choices in order to solve extinction because that's the only way that we can have policy choices. They've also conceded a piece of 1 and C at Keller et al. Evidence indicates that political dialogue and a focus on policy relevance is critical to critical thinking skills that allow us to formulate knowledge about the future, which is critical in dealing with a litany of challenges. They answer the mirror evidence. They say that we are the most dogmatic, but we are not the most dogmatic because our mirror evidence indicates when we learn to debate both sides of an issue, it allows us a thorough understanding. This is the reason why debate is one of the most open-minded activities, is because we have to examine both sides of an issue. The KKK doesn't examine the other side of an issue and continually makes racist continually racist. If they were forced to examine the other side of an issue, they would be more likely to change their opinions. This is evidence from Rawls 99. Private citizens are to think of themselves as if they were executives and legislators, ask themselves what foreign policy so important and by what considerations they would think it most reasonable to advance when firm and widespread the disposition of citizens to view themselves as ideal executives and legislators and repudiate government officials and candidates for public office who violate the public reason of free and equal peoples as part of the political and social basis of peace and understanding among peoples. They say that the argument that KU still exists doesn't answer their argument because the content of our debate becomes incestuous, but debate as an activity is a prerequisite to having a good activity. Our 1 and C Shively evidence indicates that the rules of debate formulate how we are able to debate in the round, and we have to have evidence for a repetitive topic, which proves that we are not incestuous. KU has not been reading the same arguments since the UNI debate tournament. We continually developing new ones, and rules are a prior reason to vote negative. It's key to preserving debate as an activity. Shively 2K openness requires certain clear limits. Rules closure. These structures of openness cannot simply be put into place and forgotten. They need to be taught to new generations of citizens, to be retaught and reinforced among the old, and the political will changes to be shored up, rethought, and adapted and applied to new problems and new situations. They are such valuable and yet vulnerable goods that they require the most unflagging and firm support that we can give them. They've also conceded a piece of 1 and C. Lewis evidence indicates that their disdain for political structures will lead to a reactionary right takeover. If we always disdain the political structure, never engaged in political thinking, then it's only the conservative right would take over and lead to totalitarianism. They have conceded this argument, which proves that their framework makes totalitarianism and oppression inevitable. They make an argument at the bottom about the coin flip, and that's the whole reason to why they would be able to solve this isn't true, and they've conceded that they functionally undercut any negative ground on this topic because we have to argue why debate is a topic at all. They've also conceded, this was the last argument I made in the speech that was on another sheet of paper that said that there's no reason to vote out. If there are no rules in debate, I don't know why we need to actually prove that they're a bad idea. We don't need to be competitive with them. All ideas that the affirmative has none of our arguments linked to them or reason, so you could vote negative just for shits and giggles because you like us better than Baylor, and there would be no objective standard to not allow you to do that.